I thought I knew my brother better than anyone in this world. We'd spent 47 years building Anderson Manufacturing together, working side by side in the same warehouse where our father taught us to read blueprints when we were barely tall enough to reach the drafting table. Michael was my older brother, my business partner, and after our father died, he became the CEO while I managed operations. I trusted him with everything: our company, our legacy, our father's life's work. I was wrong about all of it. My name is Thomas Anderson. I'm 62 years old, and this is the story of how my own brother almost destroyed everything our father spent his entire life building, and how I had to make a choice between family loyalty and justice that still keeps me awake at night. It started on a Tuesday morning in March 2023. I remember because it was Dad's birthday. He would have been 89. Michael and I had a tradition of meeting at the old Riverside Diner on Dad's birthday, the same place he used to take us for pancakes every Saturday morning when we were kids. But that morning, Michael texted me saying he had an urgent meeting with investors and couldn't make it. I should have known something was wrong right then. Michael never missed Dad's birthday. Never. In 23 years since Dad passed, we'd kept that tradition sacred, but I told myself he was just busy. The company had been going through some changes. Michael said we needed to modernize, streamline operations, maximize shareholder value. All those corporate buzzwords that made my head spin. See, our father started Anderson Manufacturing in 1978 with nothing but a $2,000 loan and a dream. By the time he died in 2000, we were producing precision machine parts for aerospace companies all over the country. 42 employees. $8 million in annual revenue. Not huge by Silicon Valley standards, but solid, profitable, stable. The kind of company that provided good middle-class jobs and didn't lay people off when the economy hiccuped. When Dad died, he split the company 60-40. 60% to me, 40% to Michael. Not because he loved me more, but because I'd been working on the floor since I was 16. I knew every machine, every process, every employee by name. Michael had gone to business school, worked in finance for 15 years before coming back to help with strategic planning in the mid-90s. Dad respected that, but he knew the heart of the company was in the manufacturing, not the boardroom. Michael became CEO anyway. I didn't fight it. He was the older brother, he had the MBA, and honestly, I preferred being in the factory. I liked solving problems with my hands, not spreadsheets. So we split responsibilities. Michael handled finances, sales, corporate strategy. I ran operations, managed the floor, worked with our engineers. It worked. For 23 years, it worked perfectly. Until it didn't. The first real warning sign came in January 2023. Our head of accounting, Patricia Chen, came to my office looking worried. Patricia had been with us for 18 years. She was meticulous, thorough, and she didn't worry about small things. "Thomas, I need to talk to you about something," she said, closing the door behind her. "It's about the quarterly financials." "What about them?" I asked, looking up from a blueprint I'd been reviewing. "There are some discrepancies, large transfers I can't quite account for. When I asked Michael about them, he said they were strategic investments, and I shouldn't worry about it." "But Thomas, I've been doing this a long time, and something doesn't feel right." I frowned. "What kind of discrepancies? How large?" "Over the past 6 months, there have been wire transfers totaling approximately $850,000 to various accounts I don't recognize. Shell companies, I think. The documentation is vague. When I try to trace them, I hit dead ends. $850,000. My stomach dropped. "Did you ask Michael directly?" I asked. 3 times. "He keeps saying it's part of a confidential expansion strategy, and that he'll brief both of us when the time is right. But Thomas, we're partners. You're the majority shareholder. You should know about this." I told Patricia I'd talk to Michael. That afternoon, I went to his office. Michael's office was on the executive floor, all glass and modern furniture, very different from my cluttered workspace near the factory floor. "Michael, we need to talk about these transfers Patricia mentioned," I said, sitting down across from his massive desk. My brother didn't even look up from his computer. What about them? $850,000. Where did it go? Investment opportunities? I've been exploring some acquisition targets. Don't worry about it, Tommy. It's all part of the plan. He called me Tommy. Only used to do that when he was trying to smooth things over, like when we were kids and he'd borrowed my bike without asking. I'm not worrying, I said carefully. I'm asking. As your partner and majority shareholder, I think I have a right to know where nearly $1 million of company money is going. Michael finally looked at me. His expression was irritated. You know what your problem is, Tommy? You think too small? Dad thought small. This company could be worth 10 times what it is now if we made the right moves. But you're so busy playing factory foreman that you can't see the bigger picture. The bigger picture includes transparency with your business partner, I said, keeping my voice level. Show me the documentation. Let me see these acquisition targets. I'll put together a presentation for next month's board meeting, he said dismissively. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a conference call with some investors in 5 minutes. I left his office with a knot in my stomach. Something was wrong. I could feel it, but I didn't know what to do. Michael was my brother. We'd never had serious problems before. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he really was exploring legitimate opportunities and I was just too conservative, too much like Dad. I tried to push it out of my mind, focused on work. We were in the middle of a major contract with a defense contractor, and that needed my full attention. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Then in early April, I got a call from our bank. Our primary operating account, the one we used for payroll and day-to-day expenses, had been flagged for unusual activity. Mr. Anderson, this is Jennifer Martinez from First National. I'm calling about some large withdrawals from your business operating account. We wanted to verify these were authorized. What withdrawals? I asked. I haven't authorized anything unusual. We show wire transfers totaling $460,000 over the past 3 weeks to various accounts. I have Michael Anderson's authorization on file. But given the amounts and frequency, we wanted to confirm with you as well. $460,000 in 3 weeks. I'll need to call you back, I said, my hand shaking as I hung up. I went straight to Patricia's office. Pull up all bank transactions from the past 6 months. Everything. I don't care if it's 10 cents for office supplies. I want to see every single transaction. Patricia's face went pale. Thomas, what's going on? I'm not sure yet. But I need to see everything. Now. We spent the next 4 hours going through records. The pattern became clear. Starting in October 2022, there had been systematic withdrawals. Small at first. 15,000 here, 20,000 there. Then they got bigger. By March 2023, Michael was moving $100,000 at a time, always to different accounts, always with vague descriptions like consulting fees, strategic investment, business development. Patricia, add it all up, I said quietly. Every questionable transaction since October. She worked in silence for 10 minutes, her fingers flying over the calculator. Finally, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. $2.3 million, Thomas. In 6 months, $2.3 million has left our operating accounts. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $2.3 million. Our annual profit was maybe $800,000 in a good year. Michael had drained almost 3 years' worth of profits. Where did it go? I whispered. I don't know. The recipient accounts are all LLCs or shell companies. I'd need a forensic accountant to trace them properly. I sat there in Patricia's office, staring at the numbers on the screen, and felt my entire world shifting. This wasn't a simple mistake. This wasn't aggressive investment strategy. This was theft. Systematic, calculated theft. And the person doing it was my brother. I didn't confront him immediately. I've learned over the years that when something feels this wrong, you need to be careful. You need evidence. You need professional help. So I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called a lawyer. James Reeves had handled some contract work for us over the years. He was thorough, discreet, and had a reputation for handling complex business disputes. When I explained the situation, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Thomas, what you're describing sounds like embezzlement, possibly fraud. Before we go any further, I need to ask, are you prepared for where this might lead? We're talking about potential criminal charges. Against your brother. I just need to know the truth, I said. Whatever that is. Then we need to move carefully. Don't tip him off. Don't confront him. Let me bring in a forensic accountant. We'll document everything, trace the money, and then we'll know what we're really dealing with. The forensic accountant's name was Dr. Sarah Chen. No relation to Patricia, though they both had the same no-nonsense approach to their work. Sarah had testified in over 100 fraud cases. She'd helped the FBI unravel Ponzi schemes. She knew how to follow money trails that people thought they'd hidden. I gave her access to everything. Every bank record, every financial statement, every email I could find. Then I waited. For 3 weeks, I went to work every day, looked my brother in the eye during our morning meetings, and pretended everything was normal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. On May 15th, Sarah called me to James's office for her preliminary report. I remember walking through downtown Portland that morning, watching people go about their normal lives, and thinking how my life was about to change forever. "Thomas, sit down," James said when I arrived. His expression told me everything I needed to know before Sarah even opened her mouth. Sarah pulled out a thick binder and a laptop. "Mr. Anderson, I'm going to be direct with you. What your brother has done is one of the most sophisticated embezzlement schemes I've seen outside of corporate America. He's been stealing from this company for at least 18 months, possibly longer." She clicked through a presentation on her laptop. "The 2.3 million you identified is just what's obvious. When you dig deeper, it's worse, much worse. He's been using a technique called layering. He moves money from Anderson Manufacturing to Shell Company A, which then moves it to Shell Company B, which moves it to Shell Company C. By the time it gets to the final destination, it looks clean." "Where's the final destination?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Multiple places. A personal account in the Cayman Islands, a real estate investment company that bought a $3.2 million vacation home in Maui under his wife's maiden name, a brokerage account with approximately $800,000 in tech stocks. And most interestingly, he's been systematically selling company assets." "What?" I sat up straight. "What assets?" "In February, he sold 2 of your CNC machines to a competitor for $280,000. In March, he sold 3 industrial presses to another company for $400,000. He documented these as equipment upgrades, but the money never went back into new equipment. It went into his shell companies." I felt sick. Those machines weren't just assets. They were how we made our products. They were how 42 people kept their jobs. "There's more," Sarah continued. "In April, your brother initiated contact with Titan Industries. They're one of your biggest competitors. According to emails I recovered, he's been negotiating to sell them Anderson Manufacturing's entire client list, proprietary manufacturing processes, and strategic business information. The deal was for $2.7 million. He was selling our company to our competitor? The words didn't make sense coming out of my mouth. Why? He owns 40%. Why would he destroy the company he owns? James leaned forward. Because 40% of a $6 million company is $2.4 million. He's already stolen close to $4 million in cash and assets. In his mind, he's making more by stripping the company than he would by running it legitimately. What about the 60% that's mine? I asked. What about our employees? What about Dad's legacy? Sarah closed her laptop and looked at me with something like pity. Mr. Anderson, I don't think your brother cares about any of that. Based on the evidence, I believe he's been planning to bankrupt the company, pocket the money, and blame it on market conditions or poor management. The shell companies are set up in ways that make them very difficult to trace back to him. If you hadn't caught this, he might have succeeded. I sat there in that conference room, and I realized I was about to lose everything. Not just money, not just the company, but my brother, my family, the person I'd shared a room with growing up, who'd taught me to throw a baseball, who'd been my best man at my wedding. What are my options? I finally asked. James pulled out another folder. Legally, you have several paths. Civil lawsuit to recover the assets. That's the minimum. But given the sophistication of the fraud, the amounts involved, and the fact that he was selling proprietary company information to competitors, we could also pursue criminal charges. Wire fraud, embezzlement, potentially even RICO violations if we can prove a pattern of racketeering. Criminal charges mean prison, I said. Yes, probably federal prison. With the amounts involved, we're looking at 10 to 20 years if convicted. I thought about Michael's kids. My niece and nephew. Emily was 28, working as a teacher in Seattle. David was 32, a software engineer in San Francisco. They were good kids. This would destroy them. I need time to think, I said. We don't have much time, James warned. According to the emails Sarah found, the deal with Titan Industries is supposed to close on June 1st. That's 2 weeks away. If that goes through, they'll have your entire client list, your manufacturing processes, everything. Anderson Manufacturing won't be able to compete. You'll be forced to close within a year. I went home that night and didn't tell anyone. My wife, Margaret, had passed away 8 years earlier from cancer. My daughter Lisa lived in Boston with her family. I was alone in the house where I'd raised my family, where Michael used to come over every Sunday for dinner, where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays and argued about football games. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, Dad's favorite brand, and I thought about what he would do. Dad believed in 2 things above all else, family and integrity. But what do you do when those 2 things are in direct conflict? What do you do when protecting your family means compromising your integrity, but maintaining your integrity means destroying your family? I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know if I had the strength to do it. The next morning, I called James. File the civil lawsuit. Immediately. I want an emergency injunction to freeze all his accounts and stop the Titan deal. And James? Start preparing the criminal referral. I'm not going to make that decision yet, but I want the option. Within 24 hours, Michael was served with papers. James had filed in federal court, given the interstate nature of the fraud. We got our emergency injunction. Every account Michael controlled was frozen. The deal with Titan Industries was blocked, pending the outcome of the litigation. I was in my office when Michael stormed in. His face was red. His hands were shaking. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted. "You froze my accounts. My personal accounts. Do you know how humiliating this is?" I looked at him calmly. "Those aren't your accounts, Michael. That's my money. Our company's money. Our father's legacy that you've been stealing." "Stealing? I've been investing, building opportunities. You're too stuck in the past to see it." I saw the forensic report, Michael. All of it. The shell companies, the Cayman Islands account, the house in Maui under Rebecca's maiden name, the machines you sold to our competitors, the deal with Titan Industries. His face went white. For a moment, he looked like he might be sick. "You hired a forensic accountant?" His voice was quiet now. "Your own brother? You stole $4 million from our company. You were selling us out to Titan. What did you expect me to do?" "I was going to pay it back," he said. But the lie was obvious even to him. I just needed time to make some investments work out. "You bought a $3.2 million vacation home. You weren't investing. You were stealing." Michael collapsed into the chair across from my desk. For a long moment, he just sat there, his head in his hands. Then he looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in my brother's eyes before. Not remorse, not shame, anger. "You know what your problem is, Tommy. You're just like Dad, small-minded, no vision. This company could be worth $50 million if you'd just let me do what needs to be done. But no, you want to keep running it like it's 1,985. You want to keep all 42 employees even though we could automate half of them. You want to keep making the same products the same way because that's how Dad did it." "Dad built something he was proud of," I said quietly. "Something that provided for families. Something honest." "Dad died 23 years ago," Michael spat. "The world moved on. I'm just trying to keep us relevant. By stealing? By selling us out to our competitors? By making hard decisions you're too weak to make." That's when I realized. Michael actually believed what he was saying. He'd convinced himself that theft was strategy, that betrayal was business acumen. He'd rewritten history in his head until he was the hero and I was the obstacle. "Get out of my office," I said. "And Michael, stay away from the factory. Stay away from the company. As of now, you're removed as CEO pending the outcome of this litigation." He stood up, his face twisted with rage. "You're going to regret this. I'm going to fight you. I'll tie this up in court for years. I'll make sure everyone knows what a vindictive, jealous little brother you are. I'll destroy you." "You already destroyed yourself," I said. "I'm just trying to save what's left." He slammed the door so hard the window frame rattled. The next 6 months were hell. Michael hired a team of expensive lawyers. They filed motion after motion, trying to dismiss the case, trying to unfreeze his accounts, trying to portray me as a controlling, paranoid majority shareholder who was unfairly targeting his brother. The local business community took sides. Some people thought I was right to pursue legal action. Others thought I should have handled it within the family. Several of our vendors started asking questions about the company's stability. 2 of our smaller clients moved their contracts to competitors, spooked by the publicity. I had to tell our employees what was happening. That was one of the worst days of my life. Gathering everyone in the warehouse, seeing their worried faces, having to explain that my own brother had been stealing from the company that employed them. "Does this mean layoffs?" asked Marco Delgado, one of our senior machinists. He'd worked for us for 26 years. "Not if I can help it," I said. "But I won't lie to you. Things are going to be tight for a while. We took a serious financial hit. I'm going to do everything I can to make this right and keep everyone employed." "We trust you, Thomas," said Maria Santos, who'd been our floor supervisor for 15 years. "You've always been straight with us. Whatever you need, we're with you." That support meant everything, but it didn't make the nights any easier. I'd lie awake, second-guessing every decision. Should I have confronted Michael earlier? Should I have been paying more attention to the finances? How did I miss this for so long? The forensic investigation continued. Sarah kept finding more. It turned out Michael had been planning this for at least 2 years. He'd set up the shell companies in 2021. He'd been slowly, methodically positioning himself to strip the company and disappear. "Why?" I asked James one afternoon. He was making good money legitimately. Why throw it all away? "I've seen this pattern before," James said. "Sometimes people convince themselves they deserve more than they're getting. Your father gave you 60%. Maybe Michael resented that. Maybe he felt overlooked. Maybe he just got greedy. At some point, the why doesn't matter as much as the what they did." In November, we finally got to deposition. I had to sit across a table from my brother while lawyers asked him questions under oath. He denied everything, claimed the money was legitimate business investments, said the shell companies were necessary for tax purposes, insisted the Titan deal was never going to happen, despite the emails proving otherwise. He lied, under oath, looking me straight in the eye. My brother lied. That's when I knew. Whatever relationship we'd had was gone. This wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't even about the company. It was about the fact that the person I'd trusted most in the world was willing to destroy everything rather than admit what he'd done. After the deposition, his lawyer approached James with a settlement offer. Michael would give up his 40% share of the company in exchange for dropping all claims. No admission of wrongdoing, no repayment, just walk away. "What do you think?" I asked James. "Financially, it's not terrible. You'd own 100% of the company. You'd avoid years of litigation. The downside is he gets to keep most of what he stole, and he faces no consequences." "What about the criminal referral?" James sighed. "That's your call. But I have to tell you, if you pursue it, it will likely destroy any remaining relationship with your brother. His kids will hate you. The family will be fractured permanently, and there's no guarantee of conviction. White-collar crime is notoriously hard to prosecute. I thought about my niece and nephew, Emily and David. They didn't deserve to watch their father go to prison. They'd done nothing wrong. But I also thought about Marco and Maria and the other 40 employees who trusted me to protect the company their livelihoods depended on. I thought about my own daughter, Lisa, and what lesson I'd be teaching her about integrity and consequences. I called Emily and David, asked them to meet me for coffee. They came, though I could tell they were reluctant. Michael had been poisoning the well, telling them I was vindictive and unreasonable. I want you to know, I told them, that I love you both. Your family. This isn't about you. But your father did something very wrong. He stole from our company. He was selling us out to our competitors. I have proof, extensive proof. Emily started crying. Uncle Thomas, please. He's our dad. Can't you just work this out? Does it have to be lawyers and courts? David looked at me with hard eyes. He said, you're just greedy. That you never respected his ideas. That you wanted to push him out. I pulled out a folder. Inside was a summary of the forensic report, the one Sarah had put together in plain English, with documentation. The Cayman Islands account, the Maui house, the stolen machines, the Titan deal. Read this, I said, pushing it across the table. All of it, then decide for yourselves. I left them there with the report and went home. An hour later, Emily called me. She was sobbing. Uncle Thomas, I'm so sorry. I didn't know any of this. It's not your fault, sweetheart. What are you going to do? I thought about that question for a long time before answering. I'm going to do what's right, even though it's hard. In the end, I rejected the settlement offer. We went to trial in March 2024. It took 3 weeks. Sarah testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every transaction, every shell company, every lie. Patricia testified about Michael's evasiveness when she asked questions. Our former IT manager testified about Michael deleting emails and files when he knew he was being investigated. Michael took the stand in his own defense. His lawyers tried to paint him as an entrepreneurial visionary held back by his conservative brother, but under cross-examination, he fell apart. James was surgical. Every lie Michael had told was dismantled with documentary evidence. Every excuse was exposed as fiction. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They found for me on every count: breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion. The judge ordered Michael to repay $3.8 million to the company. Every asset he'd purchased with stolen money was subject to seizure and sale. But then I did something that surprised everyone, including my lawyer. Your Honor, I said when the judge asked if I had anything to add, I'd like to make a statement. The judge nodded. I turned to look at Michael. He was sitting at the defendant's table, his shoulders slumped, his face gray. Michael, you stole from me. You lied to me. You tried to destroy everything our father built. For 2 years, I've been angry, furious. I wanted you to pay for what you did. He wouldn't look at me, but I'm also tired. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of hating my own brother. So here's what I'm going to do. You're going to give up your 40% share of the company. You're going to repay, over time, at least half of what you stole, $1.9 million. That's non-negotiable, but I'm not going to pursue the criminal charges. Michael's head snapped up. His lawyer looked shocked. I'm not doing this for you, I continued. I'm doing it for Emily and David. They don't deserve to watch their father go to prison, and I'm doing it because I made a promise to our father. I promised him I'd take care of you, even though you didn't take care of me. I turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I'm asking that the repayment be structured as a reasonable payment plan. My brother has no assets left after all this, but he's an intelligent man. He can work, he can rebuild, and over the next 10 years, he can make this right. The judge looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. The court will structure the judgment accordingly. Mr. Michael Anderson, you have an opportunity here that most people in your position don't get. I suggest you take it seriously. After the trial, I didn't hear from Michael for 6 months. I figured that was the end of it. He'd pay what he was ordered to pay, and we'd never speak again. That was fine. Some wounds don't heal. But then, in September, I got a letter. Handwritten. Michael's handwriting. Thomas, it began. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. What I did was wrong. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, trying to figure out how I became the person who could betray his own brother. The therapist says I have something called entitlement syndrome. I convinced myself I deserved more than I was given. I rewrote history in my head until stealing became justified. The letter went on for 3 pages. It wasn't an excuse. It was an acknowledgement. He listed specific things he'd done, specific lies he'd told. He acknowledged the damage. And at the end, he wrote, "I got a job as a financial analyst at a mid-sized manufacturing company in Chicago. It's a fraction of what I used to make, but it's honest work. I'm sending my first payment next week, $1,000. It'll take me a long time to pay back $1.9 million at that rate, but I'll do it, every month, for however long it takes, not because the court ordered it, but because it's the only way I can live with myself. I hope someday you can at least not hate me. Love, Michael." I read that letter 5 times. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think about whether I believed him, whether this was genuine or just another manipulation. 2 weeks later, the check arrived, $1,000, with a memo that said, "Payment 1 of $1,900. And every month after that, another check arrived. Sometimes it was $1,000. Sometimes it was $1,500. Once, when he got a bonus, it was $3,000. Each one had a memo. Payment 2 of $1,900. Payment 3 of $1,900. After 6 months of consistent payments, I called him. It was the first time we'd spoken since the trial. "Michael, it's Thomas." There was a long pause. "Tommy, I didn't expect to hear from you. I got your letter. And I've been getting your payments. I'll never miss one. I promise you that." "I believe you," I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. But I didn't call about the payments. I called because I want to understand something. What happened? When did you start thinking that stealing was okay? Another long pause. Then, "Do you remember when Dad announced how he was splitting the company?" "Of course. He told me privately, before the official announcement. He said, 'Michael, you're smart and capable, but Thomas understands this business in his bones. He's been living it since he was a kid. That's why I'm giving him the controlling share.' I remember thinking, even then, that it wasn't fair. I'd worked hard too. I'd sacrificed too. Why did you get more? Why didn't you say something? Because I convinced myself I could prove him wrong. I'd be so good as CEO that everyone would see I deserved equal standing, but it never happened. You were always the one employees came to with problems. You were always the one who understood the machines, the processes, the culture. And somewhere along the way, resentment turned into entitlement. I started thinking, I deserve more than 40%. I deserve more than Dad gave me. And once I started thinking that way, it was a short step to taking what I thought I deserved. I listened to my brother explain how he'd destroyed everything, and I realized something. He wasn't a villain. He was just broken. We all have the capacity for brokenness. The question is whether we choose to fix it. "Michael," I said finally, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay. If I hadn't caught you, would you have stopped? Ever?" The pause was longer this time. "No," he said quietly. "I don't think I would have. I'd convinced myself it was justified. I probably would have bankrupted the company and blamed market forces or poor management. I would have destroyed everything and told myself I had no choice. But you're not doing that now. No, because you held me accountable. You could have destroyed me completely, sent me to prison, but you didn't. You gave me a chance to make it right. That's more than I deserved." We talked for another hour. It wasn't reconciliation. We weren't going back to Sunday dinners and arguments about football. But it was something, an acknowledgement, a tentative first step toward maybe, someday, being brothers again. Today, it's been almost 2 years since the trial. Anderson Manufacturing is stable. We're not as profitable as we were before Michael's theft, but we're recovering. All 42 employees still have their jobs. I promoted Patricia to CFO. She deserved it. Michael is still sending checks. He's up to payment 37. Only 1,863 more to go. We talk once a month now. Short calls. Updates on Emily and David, who are both doing well. Emily got engaged. David got a promotion. They've slowly started rebuilding their relationship with their father. My daughter Lisa asked me last Christmas if I thought Michael had really changed. "I don't know," I told her honestly. But I know he's trying, and sometimes that's all we can ask for. People ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd just taken the settlement, avoided the trial, kept things private. The answer is no. Not because I enjoyed hurting my brother, but because some things are more important than family harmony, integrity, accountability, justice. Our father used to say, "A man's worth isn't measured by what he has, but by what he does when everything's on the line." I think about that a lot. When everything was on the line, when I had to choose between protecting my brother and protecting what was right, I chose what was right. It cost me. It cost my family, but it was the right choice. And maybe, just maybe, it saved my brother. Not from legal consequences, but from himself. If you've made it this far, you might be dealing with something similar. Maybe not theft, maybe not family, but some situation where doing the right thing means sacrificing something precious. All I can tell you is this: integrity is expensive. It costs relationships. It costs comfort. Sometimes it costs everything you have. But it's worth it, because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And I can live with my choices, even though they hurt. Michael sent me a text this morning. Just 4 words. Payment 38. Happy birthday. I'd forgotten it was my birthday. But he remembered. And in that small gesture, I see a glimpse of the brother I used to know. Maybe that brother's still there, underneath all the mistakes and broken trust. Maybe he can find his way back. I texted back, "Thank you. Payment received." Small steps. That's all any of us can take. One payment, one conversation, one choice to do the right thing, even when it's hard. The foundation our father built isn't just bricks and machines. It's the values he taught us: honesty, hard work, accountability. I'm trying to honor that foundation, even if it means my brother and I will never be what we were. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some things aren't meant to be rebuilt exactly as they were. Maybe the best we can do is build something new from the ruins, something different but still standing. Anderson Manufacturing is still here, still employing families, still making the products we've made for 40 years. That's what matters. That's the legacy worth fighting for. And if you see a check with payment 39 of 1,900 inches, the memo line, know that somewhere, someone is trying to make things right. It won't fix everything, but it's something. It's a start.